12 times. They passed me over 12 times and still expected me to clap. My name is Nina Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, tell me in comments, stay with me. Because when your loyalty is mistaken for weakness, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave a door open behind you that leads straight to their collapse. It happened on a Thursday. I was wearing my usual navy slacks, hair tied back, pen behind my ear. My coffee was still warm, but I barely tasted it. The office had that fake buzz, the one that always came right before big announcements. They gathered everyone into the conference room. I already knew what was coming. Promotion day. I didn't hold my breath this time. I didn't straighten my blouse or sit up straighter or rehearse a thank you speech in my head. As I had learned, hope was the first thing they asked you to bring, and the first thing they laughed at when they crushed it. Team, Mr. Jacobs said, clapping his hands. We're thrilled to announce our new Associate Director of Operations. I already knew it wasn't me when I saw the smirk on Brian's face. Brian, the guy who called in sick every other Monday. Brian, who once asked me what a pivot table was during a financial review. Brian Thompson. The room clapped. Politely. Briefly. Brian walked to the front, gave that smug half-wave and looked directly at me when he said, I hope to continue the incredible work our team has done, especially thanks to Nina's attention to detail. Everyone turned to look at me, as if I was supposed to smile, to nod, to applaud. That I just blinked. Once. Then I picked up my notebook. Calmly. And I left the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry in the bathroom. I didn't whisper to coworkers about how unfair it was. I just went back to my desk and printed out my resignation letter. Because the 12th time isn't when you fight harder. It's when you realize they've already made their choice. And now, it's your turn. They called me reliable. That was the word they used like it was a compliment. But what they meant was, she won't cause trouble. She won't complain. She'll do the work and clean up everyone else's mess. I was hired fresh out of college. Young, idealistic, the kind of person who color-coded her files and brought cupcakes on people's birthdays. I didn't want much, just a chance to prove myself. And I did. Over and over again. I stayed late when projects ran over. Came in early after holiday weekends. Volunteered to mentor interns, rewrite training manuals, even reorganize the storage closet when no one else would. I did the kind of work that makes a company run. The invisible work. The kind that's always noticed when it's missing, but never rewarded when it's done. My first boss, Claire, used to say, "You've got the makings of a future executive, Nina." But when she left, they promoted her drinking buddy instead. I brushed it off. Told myself it wasn't the right time. That I just needed to work harder. But then it happened again. And again. And again. Each time the person promoted was less qualified, but louder. The kind who cracked jokes during meetings. The kind who networked at happy hour. The kind who smiled at the VP's golf stories even if they didn't understand a word. Meanwhile, I kept grinding. Because that's what we're taught, right? Work hard. Keep your head down. Earn it. Except, no one told me that earning it was never about performance here. It was about politics. Optics. Favoritism painted as merit. I once led a 6-month project that saved the company nearly $900,000. They handed the award to the guy who made the PowerPoint for the final meeting. He even thanked me in his speech, said I was his rock. And when I asked my manager privately why I hadn't been considered for the position, he said, "You're so valuable where you are. Honestly, we'd be lost without you. Valuable, but not enough to grow. Needed, but not enough to rise." I started to feel it, that quiet erosion of self-worth. Like I was shrinking inside my own success. Like no matter how many fires I put out, no one ever saw the burn marks I carried home. I stayed. Because leaving felt like admitting defeat. And because, somewhere deep down, I thought maybe the next time would be different. But by the time they passed me over for the 12th time, the weight of everything I had swallowed over the years, all the forced smiles, all the fake congrats, all the times I was called sweetheart in meetings, it settled into something sharp. Not rage. Clarity. That was the day I stopped being invisible. And started writing everything down. I started noticing things that had always been there. Patterns, politics, pettiness. But now I wasn't filtering them through hope. I saw them clearly. Take the client presentation last April. I spent 3 weekends building it. Pages of data, cross-referenced visuals, handcrafted analysis. It was the best pitch we'd ever had. But guess who delivered it? Brian. Guess who got credit? Brian. Guess who was called a rising star in the Monday morning email thread? You already know. I told myself it was a one-off. But then it happened again. And again. My work was being passed off. My ideas were being repackaged. My hours were being used to decorate someone else's legacy. And the worst part? They didn't even hide it. One day I opened a team-wide email from our department head. A summary of Brian's Q2 strategy. The document attached still had my initials in the metadata. Still had my placeholder comment on page 4 that said, "Insert chart after approval." They didn't even bother deleting it. I sat at my desk rereading it over and over, something rising in my throat. Not sadness. Not anger. Proof. Then came the leadership offsite. The one I wasn't invited to. Even though I was the only one who'd actually managed the teams affected by the rollout. "Didn't think you'd be interested in golf, Nina," my manager said, chuckling. That's when it clicked. It had never been about merit. It was about convenience. I was reliable, remember? The one who wouldn't rock the boat. The one who could be trusted not to speak up. The one who always stayed silent. But silence is only powerful when you choose it. So I stopped choosing it. Quietly, carefully, I began documenting. Every misstep. Every lie. Every instance where my work was claimed by someone else. Screenshots. Emails. File histories. Chat logs. Meeting notes. I started building a trail. Not because I wanted to sue. But because I knew something they didn't. I was done. And when you're done, really done, you stop begging to be seen. You start preparing to make them wish they'd looked sooner. I wrote my resignation letter on a quiet Sunday. The kind of Sunday that smells like coffee and freedom. No rage. No accusations. Just 2 paragraphs perfectly worded. Gracious. Professional. Deadly calm. But what I attached to it, that's where the power lived. A separate file innocently titled, Performance Summary FY Review. Inside. 48 pages of everything they'd done wrong. Favoritism. Misattribution. Wage disparities. Promotion timelines that made no sense. Quotes from emails. Metadata from documents. Timestamped Zoom transcripts. Every name. Every receipt. All backed up. All indisputable. I called it an audit. But it was a mirror. One they couldn't shatter. I didn't send it right away. Instead, I scheduled the email to go out 10 minutes after I turned in my badge and walked out the door. Because if you're going to burn a bridge, make sure they're standing on it first. Now here's the part they didn't know. I wasn't walking away from nothing. I had already accepted a new offer from a rising competitor across town. Not just any offer, I was heading up their operations strategy division. My title? Senior Director. My starting salary was almost double what I had made before. And the best part? They wanted me because of the very things my old company ignored. My methodical brain. My discipline. My refusal to play politics when results mattered more. So when I handed in my letter, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't even look back. My manager blinked at the paper in his hand like I'd just handed him a live grenade. You're resigning? Yes. Why now? Because I've learned enough, I said. He tried to play it cool, saying he hoped I'd find what I was looking for. I almost smiled. He had no idea how close he was to getting exactly what he deserved. Because 10 minutes later he'd be reading about himself, in his own inbox. My badge clicked against the drop box. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, and I exhaled. Not because I was scared, but because I was ready. They thought the story ended with me leaving. What they didn't realize was, that was just the beginning. My first week at the new company felt like breathing real air after years underground. No snide comments. No stolen ideas. No boys' club behind glass walls. My office had sunlight, space, and a nameplate that read, Nina Carter, Senior Director. But titles weren't the goal. Power was. And not the kind that demands respect, the kind that earns it. My first order of business? Rebuilding a strategy unit that had been gutted by turnover. My second? Recruiting. Because I knew something the execs didn't. My old company had a talent problem. And I had been the glue holding half their infrastructure together. So I made quiet calls. to the undervalued analyst, to the overworked project manager, to the brilliant intern who'd been ignored. And guess what? They came. One by one they joined me. Not because of a flashy logo, but because they remembered how I worked, how I listened, how I gave credit where it was actually due. Within weeks, my new team was outperforming every other unit. We crushed our Q1 targets in 6 weeks. We landed 3 clients my old firm had just lost. Then came the sweetest twist. My new company had just entered a bidding war. A major merger. Guess who we were acquiring? My old company's biggest client. The same client whose account I had kept alive with endless overtime and uncredited strategy decks. The deal would essentially pull their largest revenue stream away and bring it under me. And who led the negotiations? I did. When the client saw me walk into the room, their eyes lit up. "Nina. Good to see you again," I said, shaking their hand. "We've built something better. Something you deserve." The contract was signed that same day. Within 72 hours, my old company's CEO called a state of emergency meeting. Profits plummeted. Projects stalled. Morale cracked. And I was just getting started. The company that called me invisible now whispered my name in boardrooms. Their clients, their talent, their reputation, mine now. And the more I rose, the more they unraveled. They didn't collapse overnight. No, that would have been too merciful. Instead, they unraveled, thread by thread, denial by denial, crack by crack. It started with the board. When quarterly numbers came in 30% lower than projected, panic buzzed through their glass towers like static. Departments blamed each other. Directors pointed fingers. Middle management scrambled for excuses. But it was deeper than numbers. It was rot. The culture that kept me reliable had become a noose around their own necks. Because the people they had trained to look good in meetings couldn't build anything without someone like me behind the curtain. The first to go was Brian. Apparently, his strategies unraveled under 5 minutes of real scrutiny. Then went the head of marketing, fired after a client email surfaced, one that quoted my own pitch deck from 2 years earlier. The VP who ignored my promotion request? Demoted. Replaced by a woman I once mentored. And the cherry on top? My former manager. The man who told me we'd be lost without you? He resigned. Quietly. Without ceremony. I heard from an old colleague that HR offered him a box of tissues and a severance package. Now they were desperate. Suddenly I started receiving emails. Carefully worded, nostalgic, fake sincere. "Would you be open to a conversation? We're revisiting some past leadership decisions. You always brought so much to the table." They didn't get it. I built my own table now. I didn't need a seat at theirs. One email came from the CEO himself. He called it a heartfelt invitation to return. He even attached an offer sheet. It was 3 times my original salary. With a corner office. Stock options. An apology in all but name. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to my team. Subject line, "We don't go backward." And then I watched them panic publicly. Their LinkedIn pages became a graveyard of spin. Restructuring for the future. Refocusing core strategy. Embracing new leadership models. Translation, we messed up. And we lost the one who held it all together. But by then it was too late. Because I wasn't just the girl who got passed over 12 times. I was the storm that came after. I stopped needing their approval the moment I realized I could outbuild their entire legacy. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rising without permission. And I did. My division became the fastest growing unit in the company's history. I was invited to speak on leadership panels. My face appeared on the cover of a business magazine under the headline, "The Woman Who Rewrote the Rules of Corporate Power." But I wasn't interested in fame. I was interested in impact. So I launched a mentorship program inside the company, for women, minorities, anyone labeled reliable instead of rising. I built pipelines, funded scholarships, even partnered with 2 former colleagues who'd once been passed over beside me. Together we created a leadership boot camp for those never handed the mic. And the best part? We named the program after a word I once heard whispered behind closed doors. Underrated. Because we were. Until we weren't. One afternoon during a national conference I was asked to speak. The room was filled with top executives, many from companies that had never seen someone like me in command. As I took the stage, I spotted a familiar face in the back row. It was my old CEO. He looked smaller. Not in stature, in certainty. He couldn't look away. I started my talk with a line I'd rehearsed 1,000 times. If someone tells you you're not leadership material, don't argue. Just keep receipts. The room laughed. He didn't. After the session he approached me. Asked to speak privately. I let him. He tried to apologize, said things like, "We didn't recognize your brilliance in time, and you were always meant for more." I listened. And then I smiled. "Thank you," I said. "But I was never waiting for your recognition. Just your absence." He left in silence. That night I got a call from a junior analyst who'd just been promoted. She cried on the phone. "Someone like me made it," she whispered. That's when I knew. The rise was no longer mine alone. A year later I returned to my old building, but not through the employee entrance. This time I was walking in as a partner from the firm that acquired their largest division. Their name was gone from the lobby wall. Replaced by ours. My heel clicks echoed through the marble floor, the same floor I once walked across, invisible. The receptionist smiled. "Ma'am, the boardroom's waiting." Inside sat the new leadership team. One of them, a man I didn't know, stood as I entered and said, "So you're the one they call the quiet earthquake." I smiled. I don't shake things up. I just don't pretend the cracks weren't already there. They laughed. But they understood. Because I wasn't there to gloat. I was there to finalize a transfer of power. My old company, now a subsidiary. All operations restructured under new ethics and accountability measures. My fingerprints were everywhere, from hiring policies to mentorship frameworks. And the best part? The same desk they once told me I'd never reach. I had turned it into a conference table for 12. No gatekeeping. No silencing. No hierarchy that equated loud with leader. As I left that day I passed the old break room where I used to cry during lunch. It smelled like cheap coffee and old stories. But now, it also smelled like justice. Weeks later I received an anonymous letter. It read, "You made us rethink everything. We were wrong. About you. About what leadership looks like. Thank you." I didn't need to know who wrote it. I just folded it and placed it in the drawer of my home office. Right next to the 12 rejection letters I once kept, each with a big red, "Not at this time." Because sometimes closure doesn't come with applause. It comes with silence. The kind that follows your footsteps after everyone who doubted you finally sits down. I wasn't just passed over. I was underestimated. And I turned that into a blueprint. Not for revenge, but for legacy.